Thanks for being here. We're in the City Council chambers.
Welcome. Tonight is Monday, September 18th, 2023. This is a regular meeting of the Minnetonka City Council. I will call this meeting to order, and I will ask you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Englund, would you please call roll?
Coakley. Here. Shack.
Here.
Wilburn.
Here.
Calvert.
Here.
Sheppy.
Here.
Pearson.
Here. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda, and we have had some changes. So, Mr. Funk, I believe we have an addendum.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. 3 items for your consideration on our agenda this evening. First is related to item 10C, which is an ordinance rezoning the properties at 5432 Roland Road and 5501 Baker Road from R1 to R2. There was public comment received by the city after the council packet was distributed last Thursday, and that email is in your attached addendum. Excuse me. The second item is related to item 14A, which is items concerning Walter Key at 15700 and 15724 Wayzata Boulevard. The city received a letter from the applicant today, Andrew Walzer, to postpone the review of their item to a later date to be determined. Attached in tonight's addendum is that letter for your review. And then what we've done is also included a revised agenda numbering. So with business items, there were previously 14A, 14B, 14C, and 14D. With the removal of this item, we now have a renumbering that's in the attached addenda for 14A, B, and C. And then the last item that I have for your consideration is item 14C, which is an item related to the 2023 preliminary tax levies and the 2024 preliminary budget. Several comments were received again after the distribution of the packet, and those comments are attached in your addenda. So with that, Mayor and Council, turn it back to you for those 3 considerations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Funk. Is there a motion? Councilor Calvert?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Councilor Shack?
A second.
We have a motion by Councilor Calvert and a second by Councilor Shack. Ms. Englund, please call roll.
Coakley.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn.
Yes.
Calvert.
Yes.
Sheppy.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is approval of minutes. We have one set. It is the August 28th, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Do you have any comments or motion? Councilor Calvert?
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion to approve the August 28th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Councilor Coakley?
A second.
We have a motion by Councilor Calvert and a second by Councilor Coakley. Ms. Englund, please call roll.
Coakley.
Yes.
Shack.
Yes.
Wilburn,
Yes.
Calvert,
Yes.
Shepherd,
Yes.
Grayson.
Yes, motion carries. Item 6 is special matters, and we have none of those tonight. Item 7 is reports from city manager and council members. Mr. Funk.
Again, thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, council. I have just a couple items for you this evening. One, I just want to point out in item 10G, which is on your consent item. In the staff report, I want to clarify how many homes that are not connected to a utility. So just, again, for clarity purposes, 13 homes that are currently not connected to either utility in the city. There are 5 homes that have either city water and a septic tank, or 9 homes that have city sewer and a private well. So just a little clarity in the staff report. We did not do an addenda on that, but we wanted to verbalize to you that correction. I also want to mention that this Wednesday, September 20th, from 6 to 7 p.m., there is a Hillcrest neighborhood meeting for potential development projects. So I just want to make sure the council is alerted to that. We also then, with natural resources, this past, recently we had 2, or at least 1 session on managing buckthorn workshops. One was on Wednesday, September 13th, and then the second one is coming up on Thursday, October 5th. That is from 6:30 to 8:30 in the community center, and certainly all members of the public are encouraged to attend. And then last, I just want to mention that we are still technically in a drought, and that the city has our lawn watering restrictions through September 30th, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on even watering days. So with that, Mayor and Council, turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Funk. Council, any reports to make for Councilmember Calvert, or Councilmember Calvert?
Where am I?
No, I was trying to decide whether it was Councilmember Shack or, I know who you are though, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, before we get started with anything else, I just want to wish everyone who celebrates the Jewish New Year a very happy, healthy, prosperous, sweet New Year. And I want to, as always, I want to thank the Minnetonka Police Department for providing protection to my congregation. It is a time of rising anti-Semitic activity in our country, and I am so proud of the work that our police department does, and I'm always grateful for their support of my community. I want to also just mention that today was the Improving Services Delivery Committee meeting for the League of Minnesota Cities, where we come up with policies with many cities from across the state and people, staff that work for the League of Minnesota Cities, having to do with all services that cities provide, from water and sewer to police and fire and elections. So we went through many policies, came to consensus on the policies that we're bringing forward, acknowledged our successes at the legislature last year, and one of the policies that we were talking about today has to do with the decriminalization, for instance, of drug paraphernalia, and how to handle that moving forward, and what position the cities should take. So my position was that since it was decriminalized, that we should be gathering data to make sure that we know what the intended and unintended consequences are of that activity. And I just want to say that, you know, I see you here, and I thank you for coming. And I want to acknowledge the anger and the terror, the fear, the frustration of the victims of crimes like Mr. Beeson's and others in the community are feeling. It is terrifying, it's violating, it's unacceptable. I'm sorry it happened to you. And because certain crimes are visible in the West Metro, even though crime as a whole is decreasing by the data, I know the mayor and I have been active on task forces trying to come up with solutions for why this is happening. And as the mayor said in the news story yesterday, you know, I'm proud of the work that our police force does. They can't be everywhere unless a criminal calls them up and tells them where they're going to commit a crime. It's hard to stop people before it happens. That said, we also know that there is a gap between what our police are able to do, which is we often arrest or identify the perpetrators. And then there's a gap of what happens with charging and sentencing. And there are other gaps. For instance, there are literally no juvenile facilities in Hennepin County. And that needs to be addressed. So, you know, while the city council supports our police force, and I have never denied anything the police chief has asked for, I really look forward to working with our partners, and I hope that they take, you know, the concern seriously, because we do need to address it. And so I thank you for being there. So I look forward to working with our partners in the county and at the state legislature to close those gaps, and I'm very proud of the study that we've done for public safety, and I look forward to supporting the priorities that the police chief puts in front of us.
Councilmember Shack.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things, and not to reiterate what Councilmember Calvert said, but I agree with all of it. I will say I wanted to mention, being out and about this weekend, I noticed two things. One was the visible presence of our police department at the synagogues over the weekend, and I am so proud of those officers and glad that we were able to help in that way. And I also noticed a lot of trees and trailers and sticking out of the trunks of vehicles, and I want to thank both the residents that participated in the tree sale, as well as the Natural Resources Department and Public Works for the hard work that they do to pull that off every year. So that's always cool to see all those trees going out to the community. Lastly, I want to thank everybody for coming. We hear you. We spend a lot of time talking with our chief about how we can make this community better. And so that's all I'll say for in the interest of brevity, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Councilmember, any other councilmembers? Councilmember Sheffy.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the statements by my colleagues. A lot of new people here. Brad Sheffy, Ward 3 council member. I'm not running for re-election, but it's good to see everyone. I just want to share a couple of quick things. First of all, I want to say thank you to Chief Orwell for keeping Minnetonka Police in Minnetonka schools. Obviously, I think a lot of people have read there's the seas of party. You're either in like, let's pull them all out and let's protest, or we believe police cause trauma to kids. And so to take the pragmatic approach of doing things that we've done for a very long time in Minnetonka, I think was a great thing for them to do. So I'm excited that we decided to business as usual, where our school resource officers are trying to be a person in the school, a body of trust, someone that's not just a badge on the street, but someone who a lot of those students know and can talk to and can be a resource beyond like trying to address an outlier awful incident. So I also want to pivot to a personal note. So I'm remarried, and my son goes to Valley View Middle School in Edina. I live in Minnetonka, obviously. He's with us half-time, but some of you may know that there was also an incident at the high school, which is attached to the middle school last week. And so the issue of crime and just talking about averages, I think is very frustrating to the average person. Like, I really don't want to hear anyone tell me crime is down. I just don't. I'd rather have people just say, I think it's important to say crime is different. It's different. Meaning, these people who are committing the crimes, they know that for specific reasons why I trust our chief and others, they're not being chased. They know that, right? And so many of us have watched the horrible video that is one of the reasons why many people are here tonight. And it's very unsettling. And that did not used to happen in Minnetonka. That did not used to have to happen. We also didn't have to have, it used to not be the case where department stores had to deal each with $1 million of theft annually at Ridgedale. That did not happen before. And so I think our challenge is what do we normalize? What do we normalize and accept? And I just don't think we need to be complacent and say, oh, that's just one person, it's a one-off. No, like things are slowly changing, and I think it's important for people to continue to speak up, show up, vote, and people who are running for all of your offices, ask them, what are your position, and be specific. But in terms of my story, so I had to talk to my 11-year-old son last week about what do you do? What do you do if there's a shooter? Because they did not have school last Friday because they were all told to not return the next day. Now it's because they had someone in the parking lot had a Snapchat video and threatened with a semi-automatic handgun during the video someone inside of the school. This was last week. And so what this is like, so for me, that like brought this all home. So it's like I had to talk to my 11-year-old son about, God, what do you do? But the reality is we are in Minnetonka, we are pretty well off. These conversations happen all the time in Minneapolis and other places where they can't walk down the sidewalk. And so I think the voices that we have should not just be for Minnetonka residents, but for these people who need help in other neighborhoods too, that don't have the resources. So, in one of the, I'm going to pivot this conversation briefly. This is not about me, but it's about listening to everyone here. But I want to share the personal story. But I do think, though, that, so I asked my son, what do you think about this? What does this all mean to you as an 11-year-old? And his initial reaction was, well, why would anyone do that, right? Why would anyone do that? And so the difference is my son has had parents in his life. He's had mentors. He's had people who love him. And so I know it's pretty easy to get into this political camp of left or right versus like, it's all about the guns or it's all about the criminal justice system. I think it's both. But we also have to recognize we have a boy crisis. These crimes are being committed by young men. I'm a man. I think we need to be not just assume everyone's the same. Like we need to understand that. There was a recent book, 2 books I want to reference briefly. One is called The Boy Crisis, and it gets into the challenges that our new modern society has for young men, ranging from never having a teacher in grade school that is their gender, which is my son happening to dime. That's all women. Nothing wrong with that. And then many of these schools, they don't look like any of these, the teachers don't look like any of the students. So then if they don't have, you have family court and other things in Minnesota that don't support attaching fathers to their kids. I can attest to that story about how awful family court is in Minnesota for fathers. And so like on and on and on. We have a lot of problems to fix in Minnesota, but we have to have the both and analysis. Charles Adams wrote another book recently that came out called My Life as a Black Cop and Championship Coach. No one's ever heard of him. He is a North Minneapolis stalwart, where he is a mentor, and we talk about, you're here because like we want a government solution. I think we're having a community culture conversation as well, meaning he as a football coach has changed the lives of countless amount of people, right? By being present, by calling, by checking on them. He's been a mentor and a de facto father in a lot of people's lives. And so when we think about how do we continue to do this, yes, we have problems with judicial facilities and sources, but we also have to understand we have a boy crisis. We have a lot of homes without fathers, and we need to work on just how do we work with that system. And lastly, in terms of Minnetonka's role, we all know that we had the Hennepin County Homeschool, used to be in Minnetonka, right? Some people know this topic more than others, but it was one of the places where some of these children who were in very difficult situations were sent to. And they were sent to by people much smarter on the topic than me, by judges of color, judges of female and color who supported that for very specific reasons. And a couple of years ago, it was administratively cut off, not by a public hearing, but they decided this is the staff close the facility. And so you can go to it in 2021, Max Nestor wrote a really great article on this topic called Judges Raise Alarm Over Hennepin County's Closure of Soul Youth Correctional Facility. And in there's a lot of really good quotes as to how we got here and why, right? So we're not talking about pulling children out of homes. A good quote was by one of the judges who said, "There are children who have been involved in shootings and pose a danger to others who would be in danger themselves if they returned home. There are kids who have been sexually or physically abused by a family member. There are kids who are homeless and have nowhere else to go. And these facilities were closed administratively and then with no plan in place." And so I think we're working through that right now. But I thank everyone for listening. It's not about me. I can't wait to listen to your emotions and stories, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Councilmember Sheppy. Is there anyone else? So I've got a couple of comments, and first of all, I want to remember that on a week ago today was 9/11, and we didn't have a regular council meeting that night, and I just cannot forget the commemoration of that event, the horror and the trauma that represented to our country, to the city of New York. I don't know if any of you caught it, but on 60 Minutes on Sunday night, there was a story about the fire department of New York and the heroism of those firefighters. And I had to wipe tears from my eyes because it was brutal, and that's 22 years ago. But it calls to mind what we owe our people in uniform, our police officers, our firefighters, our military. We owe so much to them. They're putting their necks on the line for us every day. And I think we need to be more intentional about saying thank you. And if you haven't seen that 60 Minutes piece, I urge you to go back and watch it, but also have a box of Kleenex, because it is tough to watch, but it's important for Americans, and it's important for residents who care about their communities to watch that. So I just wanted to make that mention. Second thing, on a little lighter note, I was at the chili cook-off, which was a competition between the Hopkins and Minnetonka fire departments and police departments, and also the Hopkins Minnetonka Recreation Department at Faith Presbyterian Church. It was a fundraiser for ICA. It was well attended. Everyone had a good time. The Hopkins Fire and Minnetonka Fire kind of split the honors in terms of the awards, which was good because, as Mayor Hanlon will tell me, Hopkins won both last year, and he loves to remind me of that. But the other piece of it is that it speaks to the collaboration that exists between our cities. We work closely with Hopkins. We have a shared recreation department, but we work closely with Hopkins Fire. We work closely with Hopkins Police. We work closely with the departments throughout the West Metro. And I can tell you that if we didn't collaborate the way we do, we'd have to raise your taxes, because we need a larger fire department, we need a larger police department, and we'd have to pay for that. So collaboration not only is more effective, because we don't have all of the equipment in Minnetonka. Sometimes we use Edina equipment, sometimes we use Hopkins equipment, because some of the equipment is so specialized that it doesn't make sense for a city of 54,000 people to have that equipment when, a community of 200,000 can share that equipment and do it more effectively. So collaboration, and we're going to be talking about collaboration more tonight, but that's a point that I wanted to make. And then I do want to comment a little bit too, because we're going to have the next item on the agenda is an open mic opportunity. And that is not something where we are going to engage, the council will not engage in dialogue. We are here to listen to you, and then we will turn things over to staff, and we will follow up. But we won't get into a real debate or anything like that. It's if people want to come forward and speak, we welcome that, and we're here to listen. But I did want to say, I appreciate the comments of each of the council members who spoke on crime in Minnetonka. And I fully agree with what Councilmember Sheppy said. When you're a victim of a crime statistics are irrelevant. It's deeply personal, and it impacts you, and it changes your life. Whether it's a violent crime, and one of the battles we've been working on is this juvenile crime and the notion that property crimes are not serious. And there are some of the prosecutors in the county and in the metro that have felt that property crimes are not serious. And the point that I've tried to make in my conversations with our police officers, with our fellow cities, is that when your next door neighbor's car is stolen, you feel more safe in your neighborhood or less safe. And as a mayor, I feel the number one job that I'm not doing my job, and I take that very personally. So I truly care about the crime issue. Our crime statistics aren't horrible, they are declining, but as Councilmember Seppi said, if your spouse's car is carjacked out of your driveway, that changes your life. And so I thank Mr. Beeson, and we'll hear from him, I'm sure. But I thank him for rallying all of you here, because you're welcome here anytime. And this is a big crowd for us, but hearing what you have to say is important. And so, I think I'll leave it at that. I won't quite leave it at that. The one thing that's really a challenge is that we've seen a dramatic rise in juvenile crime. And there has not been a good solution. We hear about the Kia kids and these certain brands of cars are being stolen and all of those sorts of things. But what it takes, we could do a perfect job of policing in the time. And I'll tell you what, we do a good job. With all due respect, it's not perfect. But we do a good job of investigating and arresting. But if we investigate and arrest a perpetrator and that person doesn't get charged, and if it's a juvenile, we have a Hennepin County attorney who's working really hard to revamp the juvenile justice system, and that's not inappropriate. But we don't have the tools in place. So what it takes to take a perpetrator who is guilty of a crime, okay, we need to investigate and arrest. Then we need a prosecutor who will charge. And sometimes they charge, and sometimes they don't. Then we need judges who take the law seriously and provide an appropriate sentence for that perpetrator. And then we need a place to put those individuals. We need to have a program to do something with them. And it doesn't have to be jail, or it doesn't have to be even the Hennepin County Boys School, which I wish we still had. But it has to be something where people are held, or youth are held accountable. And our system right now is lacking accountability because the system isn't working as a system. There's missing pieces, and that needs to be fixed. And that takes a lot of work. And I think some of it can be done by the juvenile justice system, but I also think some of it can be done by nonprofits. And we have quite a few influential people in this room. I would like to urge people in this room to consider getting involved with nonprofits and organizations that can make the difference in kids' lives. Because you know what? We all have a stake in this. And it's not just because my house got broken into or your house got broken into. We all have a stake. Our society needs to have successful youth, and we need to turn around the lives of perpetrators of these crimes and turn them into productive members of society. And our system in this county right now is broken. It's missing pieces. So, if I thought as a mayor that I could say, well, if we do our policing right, we're good, don't worry about it, I'd sleep better at night. But crime is an issue, and we need a system to work effectively and properly. And we have missing pieces, and I think that's something that we should consider as we go forward. But also, let's take it personally and recognize that we all have a responsibility to make the system better. If we just say somebody else will do it, it's not going to happen. We all have a role to play. So I'd like to pardon my speech, but I'm pretty passionate about this. And obviously, with a room full of people like this, I really care about what's happening here and what you all have to say. So that's it for reports from council members. A little longer than normal, but this is kind of an unusual night. So the next item on the agenda is citizens wishing to discuss matters not on the agenda. And so this is an open mic opportunity, and we're not going to limit how many folks can speak, but we also ask that you be respectful of time, and also that you don't be repetitious. We don't need to hear the same thing 4 times, but we're not going to stop anybody. We're here to hear what you have to say. So anyone who would like to come forward and speak, please give your name and address, and address the council. And then we won't take any action tonight. We will turn it over to staff for further follow-up. So with that, welcome and thank you for being here tonight.
First of all, I want to ask these policemen here, if they're not charged for the crime, is that part of the statistic of crime going down? So if I was carjacked and they didn't charge me, that's not counted as a carjacking, correct?
No, it is.
It is?
Yeah.
And first of all, about the end of May, I was carjacked in Minneapolis. I own a commercial contracting company. And we were working, I'm not gonna give the location, somewhere in Minneapolis. And, I was coming out of the building, we were working, we knew all along this spot was terrible, it's off East Lake Street in Minneapolis. They were selling drugs, prostitutes, broad daylight, had card tables out, sitting in chairs. For the 3 weeks I was working there, they didn't do anything about it. I called the governor's office 3 times, not one time did one cop car go down that scene. Finally, something happened, my car got carjacked. And about 2 weeks before that, my car was stolen from my commercial property. I had a car I'd been working on for years that was stolen, nothing done about it. So I'm coming out of the building, get out of the parking lot, sure enough, this group of about 40 people that have been sitting there for about a month, that have been working there, selling drugs, prostitutes, having sex in the dumpster, behind the dumpster in a cage thing there, and not one thing was done about it. I didn't see one cop the whole time. I called the governor's office, nothing happened. I got carjacked. I sat there, I called my brother, he came and got me, I said, wait a minute, I got my Ford app on my phone. So I pulled up my Ford app, I followed the guy, it took me 2.5 hours, I finally got him. My wallet, everything was stolen, he filled out my credit cards, sold all my tools in the back of my truck. Finally, we caught him at a pawn shop in New Hope. I see him coming into my car, I got him to the ground, I tackled him to the ground, I got him in a headlock, he bit me, his blood got into my bloodstream. And not one person did anything about it except film me the whole time this thing happened. Finally, some lady come running back from about 20 people watching this altercation happen, which nobody did nothing, called the cops and the cops came. What did they do? They hauled him into an ambulance. And when you want one? I said, no, I gotta pay a deductible. I had to go and it cost me thousands of dollars. I've had 2 vehicles stolen. The only reason I followed them is because I seen what happened in that building for 3 weeks. Not a thing was done. And when I was sitting in the cop car, while this was happening, they were coming up to the car and pounding on the windows as I was reporting to them. And she goes, I can't do a thing about it. That's disgusting. And when a criminal keeps getting caught, what do? You wave her out farther. You're a known person there committing a crime in that area, so you're gonna go out farther. So now they're coming out to Minnetonka. Because nothing, and I'm not blaming the cops. I get it. That's the worst job in the world right now. They get zero respect, but I just think that they're not doing nothing about it. I read in the paper last week, they're saying, oh, the crime's going down. Bull crap. I've been a contractor in Minneapolis. I've worked there for 38 years. It's horrific. I've had license plates stolen. Every time I turn around in the area, there's a encampment coming up. And the only time they'll clean that encampment up is if something happens inside the encampment, like a shooting or a knifing or some crime within the encampment. They're not doing anything about it, and your governor's lying to you. I'm sorry. Within the last year. And the only reason I went after my truck was that I'm sure my insurance, I wouldn't be able to buy insurance. Because I had one car they paid out, and every time I go to a city, because I followed them, we went pawn shop to pawn shop to pawn shop. Oh, we can't go there, that's Richfield. Oh, that's Bloomington. Finally, I just said, screw it, and I went follow them, I seen them inside there, I put my brother's truck right behind them, and that was the only way you're gonna get justice, is to fight back.
Well, thank you. I did not get your name or your city.
My name's Brian Anderson, I live in Minnetonka.
Great, Brian, thank you. And then, the other thing is, with all due respect to everyone, we don't applaud here. We try to maintain decorum because that's the way we do it in the city council meeting. So I really respect your enthusiasm for some of the things that are said tonight, but let's just maintain our decorum, be respectful to everybody, not intimidate to anybody. But thank you for coming forward, I appreciate
Did
it.
you just say they never charged them?
Yeah, they never charged him. We had them, they arrested him, City of New Hope, I called them 3 times, they wouldn't charge him. That's why, you just want to do it again. Why
I
not?
understand,
And my car was filled with busted crack pipes all over, it just reeked.
you're not getting any argument here, because that's.
I just had to come up here, see you
I
later.
appreciate it, thank you. Good evening.
Craig Beeson, Wingwood Ward. Few of you might know why I'm here. My wife and son were viciously attacked in their driveway a month from here, or 7 miles from here a month ago. Yeah, sure. Yep.
And if you pull those mics up, you know, they're on.
Is that better?
Yep, that's
Yeah, so they were viciously attacked. Her car was stolen. They beat her up. They beat my 13-year-old son up. And honestly, I know more about the justice system than I really ever cared to know. Mayor Brad, you did a great job meeting with me. Great feedback from Bradley on this. I think that the reason I'm here is because we're tired of this. Like, we're tired of the crime, not just in Minnetonka, but in the metro area. And I think I want to know what we can do to evoke change. Like, how can we change this? I've heard that the DA does not believe in charging these individuals. I know we have a broken juvenile system, but what can we in the room? Because I'm guessing everyone, this could have happened to anyone in this room. Any person in the city, anywhere, this could have happened. You. I know this because it happened in my driveway. So I'm here because I want to know from the city council, and I know that you guys can only do so much, I understand. But what advice can you give the community residents on what we can do so we can have something that gets changed? And it's got to be just beyond, making a change in the voting or the ballot box. It can't just be that. There has to be more that has to be done. And what do we do?
Well, I'm gonna leave that as a rhetorical question for right now, because the purpose tonight is to hear what you have to say. But we will follow up and get back to you, because I think we have some ideas, and I think our council members will. So I think that's the way we've got it. I mean, this is an open forum. We're gonna listen tonight, but we will follow up, and our staff will follow up. You'll hear from our police chief again, and you'll hear from me again, because we don't take this matter lightly, and we are working on solutions. I think having a room full of people like this will make a difference, and you have a voice, and I think there are opportunities to magnify that voice, to make responsible people understand that things have to be done. We have to work collaboratively with the county and with other agencies, but none of us want this crime rate to increase. No one wants anybody to have experience like you've had, and we do take it seriously, and I feel personally responsible. So I'm committed to working with you to help change happen.
I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone that came forward with this, because this is how it's going to change. Build a room full of people that want to change.
Very good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Good evening.
My name is Brian Arneson, and I live in the Druckenwood community. It's a townhouse community off of 101 and Minnetonka Boulevard. And I just moved in there not a few years ago. And on August 13th, I was moving some trash bins out of my garage to the street, and like usual, I left the car running because I figured it would not take very long. And during the time I was kind of walking back and forth between the garage, I saw this car kind of pull around into our cul-de-sac, but I thought it was one of my neighbors. I didn't really pay all that much attention to it. And I don't know, one of my neighbors took a video, and I don't know, we gave it to the police. I don't know if anyone passed that along to any of the council members or not. But I think it's kind of informative to see a video of what occurred, not encourage the police to share that with you folks, to get an idea of what I went through. I was lucky. They did not appear to have any weapons. They kind of, actually both of them kind of drove around me as they were leaving at a high rate of speed. They were later found, or witnessed to be driving down 101 to to the interstate and was throwing my stuff out of the car window. It was an obvious, gives you kind of a sense of how sophisticated these guys are. They knew what could track them in my vehicle. My phone was the first thing that they threw out. I've got an Easy Pass, that could have tracked them. And Toyota also has a system that can track vehicles as well. And they ripped the computer system out of my car very shortly after they left. So these folks, although they may be juveniles, they sure as hell know what they're doing. I was lucky, I didn't get hurt. Car got back, relatively was found in downtown Minneapolis a day later. But I guess what I could say to this is that we have the council here, but I think a lot of decisions are made at the board level. I was a Hennepin County employee for 38 years. I kind of followed how things went in the board meetings, and when I believe you said that it was an administrative decision that closed the county high school, I find that hard. It was a board level decision with that kind of closing. I mean, it's a huge issue, and I don't think that just could have happened because some administrative, they might have recommended it, but it was still up to the board to decide. And I guess the other thing that I could comment about is that, I think juvenile justice was on the platform of our current county attorney's race this year. And if people had taken the time to look at the candidates and look at their positions, I think our county attorney's following through with what she said. I don't think there was any question about that. And I think, are people looking, are they reading? I know a lot of times in our state, whoever's the endorsed Democratic candidate is gonna get voted in. And I say this as someone who's voted Democratic. I voted for two Republicans, David Dernberger and Arnie Carlson. And I don't, regret a lot of that, but I do think it's time for the citizens of Hennepin County to take a look at our elected officials. And the other thing I could say, Minnetonka police were great in all this, however, I haven't gotten any follow-up from them, about, there's some West Metro Task Force was being formed, but I think it would have been nice if someone could have contacted me and given me some information. Well, I understand,
Well,
charging.
thank you, Mr. Arneson, and I'll make sure that our police officers know, so thank you for sharing your story. Good evening, and I'd just like to kind of keep things moving around a little bit, or we could be here all night, and my 7 o'clock flight won't feel so good tomorrow morning. But that's about me, it's not about me, so go ahead.
Gotcha, thank you. My name is Ted Hansen. I live on Oakland Road here in Minnetonka, and I should say I moved here just several months ago in December from Minneapolis, where I lived for 20 years. And we love it here. We want to keep it a place that can be a lifeboat, frankly, from problems experienced in the inner city. And we are really grateful for the police department. We've seen really positive actions in our neighborhood. There was a manhunt a few months ago with a helicopter circling, and it really seemed like the policing was effective. But Mayor, you mentioned the issues with the prosecutors, and I guess I would ask that you as a council and as a mayor, use your megaphone, your public presence to keep after that, because we believe our justice system is an adversarial system where you have prosecutors and the defendants get their own attorneys. And unfortunately, our prosecutor has a history, as defending criminals, and that certainly is where our heart lies. And I know you want to be collaborative with the county and presume with the attorneys, but across our country, other attorneys have been recalled by voters, and they've been thrown out of office by governors, and that is an option. If she doesn't want to do her job in our adversarial system, then I guess I would ask you to continue to speak up and name names and give examples and work with your colleagues around the county. I love Minnetonka. I'd like to stay here for a while. I hope I don't have to leave Hennepin County because of factors that are outside your control. And I appreciate this venue, and I just really hope that you keep this issue at the top of your agenda. And I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson, and welcome to Minnetonka. Glad to have you here. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Benjamin. I've been a Minnetonka resident for 27 years. And I have never seen crime so bad as in the last 4 years. And my plea is to think ahead. You're the council. You're supposed to think to the future. Light rail is coming on. Guess what's going to come on light rail? As terrified as I am of what's happening to people here, I am more terrified to know the criminals will be able to hop on light rail, not pay, come out to the ends of the earth, which I used to think this place wasn't easy, but no more. So I would like to hear your plans for making sure that this community stays safe, because I'm here to tell you, I think it's only going to get worse. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening, my name is Diana Minnie, and I live in Western Minnesota. On July the 19th, 2 cars were stolen out of my garage. My husband and my own car. Hi. On July 19th, 2 cars were stolen out of our garage in Minnetonka here. I live in Western Miss. My name is Diana Minnie. And the police were really good. My car was caught because it had a low jack. They found it in 8 hours. My husband's car is still in the shop almost 2 months later. The crime here is incredible. And I guess what I want to say is maybe it's time that these juveniles for certain crimes are not tried as juveniles, but they're tried as adults. When these kind of car thefts and with guns, and this is happening in a community like this, something needs to be done. A 15 or a 14-year-old is not the same as a 15 or a 14-year-old was 20 years ago in this country. And I think we need to recognize that. And something needs to change in our criminal justice system. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, council. Bear with me, got it, Winfrey. My name is Rich Hector. I actually live in St. Louis Park, but I wanted to come here tonight. I thought it was very important. I've been a practicing full-time attorney since 1989, but I have good hair, so I look younger. You are absolutely right. The system is broken. One of the things I do is criminal defense, and it's unbelievable nowadays how no one is held accountable. What I want to suggest is 2 things. Number one, this is always going to be a blue state. I said it. I may be canceled everywhere for saying that. But people have to learn to defend themselves and their property. If you physically can't do it, maybe the city can offer some classes. Maybe you can look at getting your conceal and carry or carry mace. The police will get there in 4 minutes, but you only have 2 minutes. I think another problem, with all due respect, is the media. There's complete blackout in terms of how bad crime is, And locally, no one is covering the lawful gun owner or the lawful person who protects his property and fends off people. Last night, I think it was last night, there was a special on ghost guns. Again, sending fear, but not really talking about solutions, or again, the good guys. You have to go to like Fox News and the Blaze and other places, and every day you'll see tons of articles where people are defending their stores. They're stopping mass shoplifters. While it's probably not lawful, if I was in Nordstrom and saw a bunch of people like taking out Louis Vuitton purses or Chanel, I would tackle them. I would try to do something. So my bottom line message is, number one, the media has to do a better job of telling people it's okay, you have to learn to defend yourself. Don't just rely on the police because they're wonderful. In fact, I see Mr. Fletcher here, love the man, he does a great job. But again, they're not gonna get to you for at least, 4 minutes. Do something in between. And number two, the media, again, needs to change the narrative. Because again, trying to change the council or board members, the governor, not gonna happen in Minnesota. So deal with it and learn to protect yourself and property, take care of your family, and get the media to cover more responsible gun ownership and defending defensive property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hacker. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Cindy Pugh. My husband and I have lived in this area in Chanhassen, just west of here, for over 35 years. I'm outraged by the incident reported by Alpha News, and am here tonight to show my support for this family who was victimized and is traumatized by thugs who violently attacked them in an attempt to rob them of their property. Their blatant disregard for life and the property of others was not only captured on camera, but reportedly detailed on a warrant for other criminal activities for which one of the suspects is wanted. We, the law-abiding people of this community, have had enough. The cancer that is the out-of-control crime in Minneapolis has metastasized to the suburbs, the second and third tier suburbs. Who would even go into Minneapolis if you didn't absolutely have to? And now, many who live here in our once safe community want out in an increasing number as well. When will this madness end? And what will this council do to regain control and begin to restore safety and security to our neighborhoods? I know that's a rhetorical question, and I would want to add that I think Mr. Hansen's recommendations, one of the speakers, several before me, about raising your voice, Mr. Mayor, in collaboration with other mayors of the second and third tier suburbs, and his suggestion about mobilizing toward recall, which most members of the community are not aware is even a possibility, would be a good place to start. So I thank you for your time and your immediate attention to this critical issue.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
My name is Greg Anderson. I live on Wynwood Court, near Craig and Beeson's. Also have a business in Chaska. And the only thing I want to say is, I think the cops in Chaska and the cops here have done a great job. I have friends who are cops. The problem is we've berated and castigated the cops, so nobody wants to be a cop anymore. And I don't blame them. So my point is, we can't let the defund the cops, burn the precinct down, people win this battle. And I'm not sure it can be won any other way. So I just want to say that I appreciate the cops. The cops have done, whenever I call them, the town police have come instantly almost. And I appreciate that. And they caught the perpetrators of the Beeson's crime right away. And I don't think that the battle is even close to having been won. I just we have to make it an honor to be a policeman again, and not what it is now. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Daniel Brock, I live in Covington Lane. I changed the issue a little bit. There was a press release or something on the website. I got an email, Mike Funk, I don't know if you got that email, I'm sure you get a lot of them. On 9/15 that, you know, was put out, I guess, by the police department, basically victim blaming the people who've gotten robbed, their cars stolen. I don't know if you've seen the article, it's on your website. It starts out and kind of combines a bunch of stuff together, and it was their fault because they got a hold of their keys and they left the door unlocked, and, you know, but there were still 20 cars supposedly stolen that weren't, in that car, which is a lot. 20 cars is a lot. You know, we start with 49, and then we go and say, well, 29 of them were the victim's faults, which, you know, we're all becoming prisoners in our own homes. You know, we have people taking out their garbage and getting their cars stolen. We can't lock our door every time we walk outside to get the mail, but unlock it, and, you know, I mean, we're prisoners in our own home. But I think putting out a press release like that is very disingenuous. It's an insult to people. And to me, it shows a lack of leadership in the police department. And I've had pretty good relations, you know, with the men in blue. Don't blame them. They're the ones that come out when you have a heart attack and rescue. They're the ones that came, the first people that came to the fire at the 101, right behind my house. They were the first ones there, you know, but somewhere in the chain, somebody's putting out a press release, victim blaming the people. And I think that shouldn't happen. That's insane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Todd Hamster from Beachside Drive. This is a question that you can't answer here, but if we could get it for your staff to address it or at least show the policy online, I'd appreciate it. I've had conversations with Police Chief Boardroom about incidents and what and how and where. I have nothing but respect for him and his department. My interactions is both a person calling and also got a traffic citation. Everybody was very nice about that. What I'm talking about is, I asked him, why isn't there more active policing when I was a member of the MTKA Crime Prevention Association? He was very candid and said that the city council has policies that says they cannot go out and actively look for, handle, and deal with crime. It has to be a serious activity that they actually see to happen. So there's no longer something like when I first moved here 7 years ago, the gang tags at Shady Oak Lake. I called about that. Police officer was very nice. He called. He said, "Thank you for calling in a complaint because now I can go investigate." I am not allowed to. That's where he is. I remember allowed to investigate anything without a complaint. And so my question for city council and also city attorney is that policy posted, because I haven't seen it. I will on the city website. I received the weekly update from the police department on crime. Thank you for that. That's very good. It's showing the hot spots, as they said, Opus, Ridgedale, things like that. Someone else talked about the light rail coming out. I know that the chief is planning actively for what happens when that gets here. I appreciate that. But I'd really like to know what the council's policy plans and also what statements he's given to the police that they're restricting them from going out and actively policing our streets. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think just give it to staff, give it to maybe Ms. Wishnack, that would be good. And yeah, we will follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, I'm gonna make a request just to keep things moving. When we have a big group like this, I've done this in the past. If you're going to speak tonight, please line up, because we spend a lot of time waiting for the next person to come up. I want to be as efficient as possible. When there's nobody in line, we're going to end this public comment. So if you think you want to speak, get up and line up. It'll just make things much more efficient, and we will be able to hear what you have to say without wasting time between each speaker. So pardon my interruption, but I just want to be respectful, but also keep things moving along. So welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished members of the board. My name is Brady Johnston. I live just off of Lake Street Extension. some thoughts and possible solutions require us to talk about things that we're not comfortable talking about. And that's politics. You know, I don't know if anybody else saw, I'm sure a lot of people saw the Star Tribune article yesterday about the number of cops per 1,000 US or Minnesota citizens, Minneapolis citizens, and it was 1.4, I believe. 1.4 police officers for every 1,000 people. And when we're in the same lines as Portland and Seattle, when they have their own problems, which are, you know, I don't want to imagine us having that same environment here. It would just be terrifying. I like to think, you know, I'm born and raised in Minnesota. We have a different set of values. We have a different way of doing things. We still believe in family values and keeping our neighbors and family and friends safe. Unfortunately, these new recruits aren't being enlisted or wanting to sign up as fast because what's the incentive? What's the incentivize, you know, to want to be a cop? You ask a little kid, when I was a kid, you know, I wanted to be a fireman or a police officer, an astronaut or whatever. But now they read the papers, they watch the news or lack thereof, and they see that our current leadership is really cutting our police officers off the knees. They're not giving a chance to uphold the law because either Keith Ellison with his revolving door or our governor, who just would rather look the other way. You know, if it's two-party system of common sense and hurt feelings, what are we supposed to do? I mean, the wedge has been driven so deep in this country between Republican and Democrat. It's really hard to find a middle ground, but that's what I think we should be discussing. We can't worry about someone, your biggest fear in life is being called a racist. I mean, you know who you are, everyone knows who they are. And it can't be about the individual, it's about the law. You break the law, you have the consequences, and that's the end of story. There shouldn't be any other discussion. But unfortunately, we're going off in all these different directions of, you know, where did this kid come from and why wasn't he given a chance? And you know, these are all great questions, but something needs to be done. We can't just have the slap on the wrist and say, you know, we'll see you tomorrow for your next crime. It can't work this way. There needs to be consequences for your actions. That's the way I raise my children. I understand that, and I just really hope we can get a bigger police force, because the one that we have right now is fantastic. Every officer I've met in Minnetonka, St. Louis Park, and Minneapolis are just amazing people, and I think they're doing a wonderful job, but there's just not enough of them. So, I guess that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Good evening, welcome.
My name is Karen Neff. I live at 5524 Dominic. And I stepped forward tonight because I was working in my yard a couple weeks ago. Our property borders Shady Hill, which is County 61. It's a divided, it's a 4-lane highway. And there were sirens, there was a high-speed police chase. There were 2 stolen cars that were driving south in the northbound lane. Police were pursuing in the southbound lane. By some miracle, no one was killed, no one was coming north. The police chase stopped at the border, which I understand why that's done. But my request to the city council is, could we get some spike strips?
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Heather Stesson. I live on Norway Pine Circle in Minnetonka. A number of us here are either parents raising children or we've raised children. I listened to you, Mayor, at the beginning when you said a number of these perpetrators come from homes that are broken. I agree. But that's not an excuse for them not to be held accountable for misdeeds. I'm tired of this already. This society is going to pop because we're allowing these people to run around. If they haven't been educated by their parents, if they haven't been trained, then let's do it. Instead, we don't have to incarcerate them, but Miss Moriarty's excuse about their brain development, let's just let that go. And let's provide some opportunities where these perpetrators can go to a school that will teach them how to behave. We all have to teach our children how to behave and how to be in a classroom and how to listen to elders and how to respect them. There's no reason. I'm sorry, we can be that a family for them that teaches them, but to let them off the hook and let them wildly run in society and commit these crimes and not be held responsible for them, I'm sorry. That's not an excuse. That's all I have to say. Thank God I haven't been accosted by one of these hoodlums.
Thank you.
But it could be any day. And, you know, that doesn't make me feel good. I live in Minnetonka because of the beauty of the community. And yes, people are disadvantaged in other parts of the city of Minneapolis. But come on, let's help them. Let's get it up to snuff so we don't have all these crimes in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Louis Stoll, live on Winter Court, just down the street from Mr. Beeson.
Good evening.
I wanted to say, first of all, I think that where we are today is something that we all could have seen coming even 5 years ago. When we started seeing some of the plans for whether we want to do it or not, we're going to integrate, we're going to bring in things like light rail into the community. There's going to be a social impact of that. There's going to be an economic impact of that. There's going to be a demographic impact of that. We have the 5-1 buildings going up all over the cities. They're changing the structure of the different communities. And as a result of that, that affects the way people live, that affects who's living there, and it also affects what we have to do to keep everybody living in harmony. We have the Minnesota 2040 policy, or program that's going forward. I would like to understand what this community can do to say, put on the brakes. We don't know how to deal with what we've already changed. Why should we sign up for even more?
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Melanie Almars, and I live off of Holiday Road, and I was an at-risk youth, and I don't think being at risk is the end of the world for a young person, that there are lots of people who can come alongside. And I'd just like to, now I feel like I am kind of repeating some things that have been said, but sometimes I think it's good to look back and really remember when was it working. Not that it was perfect, but we all have, we're making comparisons tonight on when it was working. And I don't know the history of that Minnetonka homeschool. When was that a good thing? You know, what did that look like? Where are the people that were working and serving in that homeschool? It might be important to revisit that. And I think there are plenty of empty spaces in our community that could be reprioritized for juveniles. I think, you know, well, I've been thinking about the light rail, but all these apartment buildings that are empty, there's so many empty spaces. So I don't really see a lack of facility, and, you know, I wonder where those previous workers are today who had a passion for helping youth. I'm thankful that the police are able to be in Minnetonka High School. I wasn't aware of that. And our kids are adults, and they are still friends with Officer Mason, who was at Minnetonka High School. And, you know, kids weren't afraid of him. And he was such a great positive experience. I also think often of how civics has been taken out of the curriculum. And I think probably all of us grew up taking civics classes. And I think it was valuable. Probably wasn't my favorite class. And I think, just wanted to throw that out there. And Mayor, I heard you say that you have some ideas, and I'm sure you all have so many. And I'd love a forum to be able to come and listen to your ideas. And what else? Oh, And then just looking at other resources, I know Treehouse has been a real positive influence in the past for kids. Where are those workers? What are their voices and experiences and stories would be valuable to listen to again and again, I'm sure. And Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge has been such a game changer for people's lives in our state too. So thank you, and thank you for staying late.
Thank you, Ms. Oh, well, this isn't late yet.
Good evening. My name is Mary Schweitzer, and I live in the Minnetonka Middle neighborhood of Minnetonka. And I haven't heard anyone mention or bring up the assaults of the women that occurred just recently. And I just wanted to make a comment on that. I've lived here for over 20 years, and as a female, things have changed over the last few years, and I have a feeling I never had before, which is fear. And I think a lot of us have experienced that and maybe even altered our lifestyles. I know I speak with my neighbors about this a lot. You know, we're really careful when we're going out at night to lay out our dogs. We don't go places really late by ourselves. And it's all a new feeling and experience over the last few years I haven't had here in the city. And it's really disheartening. And it just seems we have more of this creeping in. And so I just want to say to everybody, we have to be aware too of what's going on around us at all times. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes it's just impossible. But I've just found myself experiencing this fear and just being so much more hypersensitive to everything that's going on around me, which is disheartening. I know I was speaking with Melinda here. You don't go out in your yard and work anymore without closing your garage door. You don't walk down to your mailbox without closing your garage door. And just things like that that are just so different and changing. But as a female, I just wanted to bring that up since that has been another issue that we've been seeing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Schweitzer. Good evening.
Hello there. I'm Tiffany Hansen. I'm the other half of Ted Hansen that moved here from Minneapolis, and I'm the less diplomatic of the household. He is very calm and very reasonable, and I'm more emotional and I'm more gutsy at what I say. So, Mr. Pearson and Ms. Calvert, are you aware that you were lying when you said crime is down? I really would like to know the thinking. I honestly would. It's so obvious. It's so obvious crime is not down. I don't understand how you could sit there and say that to a room full of people. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I heard one of my fellow citizens say that more police presence would be good. That's something you actually have control over, increasing the police budget. Someone also made a comment about the brain function of the children that are causing these crimes, and they're pretty smart. They know there's no consequences. They don't get any consequences when they commit a crime. They'll do it again. They're kids. They're children. They are misguided. They need compassion, but they also need consequences. So I think that one thing is just to have more police. If people know Minnetonka's got a lot of police, the crime won't come here. It's pretty obvious. These solutions, they're not hard. This is not brain surgery. This is easy. We've lived in society and civilizations for, a couple millennia, different civilizations. And people get away with what they can. They're human beings. I don't exclude myself from that. Of course, I'm not perfect. I'm not up here to judge anyone and to call out someone for being bad, but their behavior it's wrong. There is right and there is wrong. And I think we're losing that in our society. The woman who just said that she's living in fear, we women, we civilized men in America. It took us a couple of thousand years to finally get men to be civilized. And we basically haven't lived in fear. And we're pretty lucky to live in this country and to not live in fear. I don't want to see that change. I think that would be regressive. That would not be progressive for women to start living in fear. You are all, this is my last thing I'm going to say, you are all here as members. You wanted this job, you stood for election, I assume. As I said, we didn't live here, we lived in Minneapolis for 20 years. So this is on your shoulders. And history will tell if you did a good job or not. Minnetonka will go down
like Minneapolis, or you can make it better. This is up to you. So I really ask that you think about it. Think about whether or not you repeat a lie, such as crime is down. Think about think about things more simply and pretty basic. You know, while still being human and seeing that the children are doing this as human, but telling them, sorry, there's a consequence for your behavior. That's all I'd like to say, and maybe just, again, increase the police presence. I think that would, I'm pretty sure that would probably cause crime to go down.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Mark Stutzner with the Berlin Pine Circle, Minnetonka. First, I want to commend the mayor and city council for even having this meeting tonight. Thank you. I know you're taking this very seriously and much appreciated. I also want to thank our Minnetonka Police Department and law enforcement in general. They've got a really tough job these days, and what they do day in and day out, their families don't know if they're going to come home after their shift, and I think we need to have more respect for law enforcement across the board. And I'm hoping the efforts tonight will move forward. Other communities hope they're doing the same thing. But until we have prosecutors and county attorneys that are going to prosecute the criminals, nothing's going to change. I think people better wake up to that when they vote for who they're voting for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stutzner. Good to see you. Good evening.
Good evening, Stephen Wanks, and I live on Post Road. After the event by the assault by the fire station, there was a big clamor on Post Road about what to do and what not to do. And I asked a question about a neighborhood watch, and I was told that there's no longer a block captain, that it's discouraged by the police and by the council. And my question is why, if we're looking for more police, why can't we use citizens' eyes to help bring justice or be able to report stuff? And I was told that it is viewed as vigilantism, that people don't want on the council and the police to have people in that role, even looking, even being eyes and ears of the police. And my second comment was when I did have an event where someone criminally trespassed on my property. When Dessel Peterson was here, I talked to her because my wife was on the board of the Lion Tech Systems. We had landmine protesters all over the place. And she told me how to post my lawn in my yard. So I did so. I said, so what happens if someone's on my yard? Well, you call and we'll come and take it. Well, I had an individual come, and when I called the police, he said, well, that's one of the people that I care. No, this is not a person I care. Well, why? Because she knew my cars. She knew what kind of furniture I had in my house. She walked around and admitted that she goes and sits on my patio furniture in my backyard. And he said, well, she's not casing the place. It's fine. I said, but she knows that I have an alarm system in my cottage, and it's full of this and that and other things. And when we go, and he said, oh, well, don't worry about it. But if she comes back again, call us. So my question, yes, and she lives not too far from you, and she knows all about what your house is like too. Mayor. So my question is if we're going to be eyes and ears and we're going to be reporting, what is the council and the police going to do to help us to make sure that we connect the dots so we don't have a Jeff Bamer again? Because I was there and I watched the effect of what happened to my neighbors when they broke into his house. So if we're going to be eyes and ears and we're going to try to help and be part of the community with the police, what can we do to help? I ask that as a rhetorical question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Ringsmith. I'm an Eden Prairie resident. I spend a lot of time in Minnetonka almost every day, and I love this city. I'm just going to say a couple of things in general. I really want to talk to the whole crowd that's here besides just you. Human nature is corrupt. Trust is earned.
You don't know me, I don't know you, I don't trust any of you. My dad was a mayor for 38 years. He never asked for a vote. He almost won on a write-in when he stopped running because they loved him so much. He earned people's trust. If someone pulls a weapon, and you see him pull a weapon, there's a certain range before you'll stop them. Once they get within that range, you're taught the decision is over and they're gone. That's part of your job. We don't have that same luxury, but I do recommend what that man earlier said. If they've got a weapon and you believe they're threatening your life, get ready. If it's just property, don't do it. Property is not a valid crime for pulling a weapon on somebody. If it's just property. Great book, The Law of Self-Defense. I believe we're in the last throes of progressive Marxist destabilization of our nation. And destabilization is the plan. It's what they're trying to, I say the word they. There is an enemy against all of us.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm gonna say one more thing here.
Thank you.
I get dreams and visions that come true. Had many of them. I have seen things that are coming in the future. I saw in the spirit what happened in the last 2020 election. And I tell you, the people that stole it are cursed. I saw it in the spirit. I saw them drag out the big old fat smiling lion. They arrested the voter. And that curse is coming down on everyone involved. I'm not saying it's any of you, but I'm saying it's coming. I saw it. God is going to bring judgment on it. Very soon, this whole thing is going to turn around. We're in the last few weeks of this. I tell you what, this thing is going down. Thank you for letting me talk before the council.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Good evening.
Jan Berghoff, I'm actually a resident of Shorewood. I hear you say that you have a plan, you have plans coming. I'm just going to ask you to please implement those plans quickly. I think we need to send out a message loud and strong that Minnetonka and its surrounding communities are not ripe for the picking. You can't just come in here and commit your crimes here and then take our cars back home. We need help here. We need to send that message. When you have that plan, let us know what it is. And please include all of us. There's a lot of people here. Include us in the plan. Let us know what we can do to help. Do we install ring cameras? Do we put air tags in our cars? You know, what can we do? Do we lock our mailboxes? Tell us what can we do to help you? But let's get that message out strong so we can stop this message quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, I'll tell you what, I'm going to end any public comment. If we have any more applauding, this meeting, we'll end this portion of the meeting and we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. I wasn't kidding when I said we don't applaud here. The next time we do this portion, there will be no more public comment. We will move on with the rest of our agenda. We have a big agenda tonight and we're going to be here late doing your work. So please show respect to this council and to the speakers. No applauding, no cheering. This public hearing is over if there is any more of that. Pardon me, thank you, welcome.
On an optimistic note, thank you, Mayor, thank you, City Council, we appreciate all of you. I believe we have good things in our future. My name is Kathleen Polk, I'm from Tonka Bay, and I ran to be your Minnesota State Senator last fall. I came in second, and this city was one that I lost the most votes in. But I'm here tonight because I care about the city, and I care about our neighborhoods. And I believe we've had and heard of really good ideas tonight. And a lot of them came from you, Mayor. And I want to ask everyone here that is present, for those of you that elected any official, make sure you show up at their forums, because what you're doing tonight really matters, and it's going to matter to hear your voice in the future. And I also want to quickly thank Cindy Pugh for showing up tonight too. We all need to stick together, whether Republicans or Democrats, doesn't matter. Crime needs to end in our communities, and it ends with us. Thank you. No applause.
Thank you, Ms. appreciate that. So I don't see any other speakers. I want to thank you all for coming here. And I will just say that, you know, we have a lot of voters in Minnetonka. And in a presidential election year, we have 91% voter turnout. In the last city election, we had 28% voter turnout. Now, that was a record. That was pretty darn good for a local election. But local elections matter. There is a city council election this year. There is an upcoming special election for the Hennepin County commissioner's seat. Elections matter. If you care what happens in your city, you know, raise your hand if you didn't vote in the last municipal election. No, you don't have to do that. But I'm serious. When I go look at the voter statistics, it's pretty appalling. When I go door knocking, I skip a lot of houses because guess what? Those people don't live in, they do not vote in local elections. Local elections matter. If you really care about showing up, then make sure that you vote in every election you have the opportunity to vote in. Make your voice heard, because a lot of the noisiest people don't get around to voting. So I end on that note, and I want to turn it over to Mr. Funk if he has, just talk a little bit about follow-up from this meeting, because it's not like this is going to end and it's going to be forgotten. So Mr. Funk.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening, Mike Funk, City Manager, for attending and watching online. I just want to say that, for staff's perspective and